Hi all, welcome back to another lecture of DBMS. And in this lecture, we will be learning about database languages. So what are different types of database languages in how we are communicating with databases? So we are communicating with DDL, DML, DCL and TCL commands. So what is DDL, DML, DCL and TCL stands for, and what are the different commands we are using in each of these languages? So we will be learning about all these things in the lecture. And along with that, we will also learn about the SQL, which is structured query language. And along with that, at last, we will see every commands which we are going to use in all these languages. So this video is again going to be very much interesting, and all the topics in this video we are going to cover is most of that will be the interview asked one. So stay tuned, stay focused, and let's begin with today's session with database languages and its types. So basically, these are the specialized programming language which we use to communicate, manipulate and manage databases. So first is DDL, which is data definition language. So when we use DDL, so basically we are defining, managing all database. So we are including the tables, schema, indexes, right? So we are basically creating it, altering it. So whatever we are doing operations while starting of the database, that will comes under the DDL, data definition language. Second is manipulation language. So in this, selecting like some part of query, inserting some data, updating some data or deleting. So whatever way you can say the manipulation of data comes in, it will come under the data manipulation language, which is DML. Next is control language. So basically when we are in database, when we are giving some hold or granting access or granting permission to some user or revoking that access from the user, that comes under, those commands comes under the data control language. Another is transaction control language. So when we are talking about some transaction to completely happen or not happen at all, how we are doing it if it in between it fails. So we are basically using some commands to commit, rollback and save point, basically to roll back all the steps from the starting position, or we are using the save point. How we are using save point, after every each point we are saving that things, so that when we are doing the rollback, instead of starting it from the starting point, we will be starting it from the last saved point and all those things. So we'll be learning about each and every commands in detail and what it does in this whole video. So let's start with the definition language first. So DDL, it actually defines database structure or pattern. Basically defines the structure of database or schema of database, like indexes, tables, constraints, etc. in the database. So we will be using create command. So create command we use to basically create a database such as table, view, index or schema. So here, instead of only creating the table, we can also create view, indexes or tables in the database. So this is a command to create the table. Basically we write create table and then we write the table name. Let's suppose employee. Then we are giving each of the attributes. So there will be 4 attributes in the table, like employee ID, first name, birth date and salary. Then we are actually saying the data type of that attribute. So employee ID will be integer, first name will be the varchar, basically character, birth date will be the date type and salary will be the decimal type. Then obviously for every table there should be one primary key, right? So primary key we are defining to the employee ID. So this is how we actually create the table. Second command comes is talks about alter table. So after creating the table, if we want to alter table, basically if we want to change the name or something like that, so it modifies the structure. It does not modify the data inside the table, but it modifies the structure of table, right? We can delete, add or modify columns and constraints. So here also we can delete, add, but instead of data we are basically focusing on the structure of table. So we can alter table employee and add department varchar. So basically if we want to add one more attribute, so out of 4 it will be 5 now, and we will be adding one more attribute called department of varchar type, where 20 characters are allowed, right? Next is drop. So drop basically actually deletes the whole table structure, right? It deletes the whole table structure from the storage. Next command is truncate. So truncate is basically removing all the data inside the table, but structure it is not deleting. So if you have some column like A, B and C, okay, and you have some data 1, 2, 3. So the rows, all rows, let's suppose 4, 5, 6. So if you have 2 rows, so the data will be deleted. So after truncate, you can see your table look like A, B, C. So you will not have any records, but the structure will still existing as it is in truncate. But in case of drop, the whole structure will be deleted along with the data. So second command is rename. So here rename changes the name of an existing table. So basically if we want to in future, let's suppose we have created a table with the name, and now in future we want to change the name of the table, so we can change it with the help of rename. Then we can comment or we can add the description also for the each table with this. So basically in DDL we are only playing with the structure of the table, right? Not inside the data. So DDL commands are auto-committed, and meaning once they are executed, the changes cannot be rolled back. The drop and truncate commands which we have seen, right? So these remove the data permanently. Where drop along with the data records, it removes the whole structure of the table, but truncate only deletes all the tables at once. So this should be used with caution, especially in the production environments. Next, truncate is often faster than delete. Delete actually deletes row by row. But here in truncate deletes all the rows at once. So this is a faster compared to delete. Coming to the second language, which is data manipulation language. So here, once we have created the whole structure, now we will start playing with the data inside the database or table. So this is a subset of SQL used to interact with data stored in relational database and allows user to perform operations such as inserting data, updating, deleting, and querying data. So here we use insert command. So how we use insert into employee. So we will give the command like insert into table name. What we want to insert. So all the attributes we'll write, and then we will write the values, what we want to add the values for the particular row. This is how we insert. Then selecting, so basically how many number of rows we want to select or columns we want to select, we can select as per the this command, where we will write select first name, last name, salary. Basically we are only selecting 3 columns out of 4, right? Out of 4 we are not selecting employee ID, so we will be selecting these 3 columns from the employee table. So our table will look like this. We will have first name, last name, and salary. So we will not be having any extra we are having employee ID. So in this table which we can see after this select command, we can only see this table. Then we have update command. So here let's suppose if in the employee table we have a salary. So for employee ID 101, if we have some salary, let's suppose 30 or 40,000, now we can update and set the salary to the newer salary, which is the 55,000. Then we can have the delete command. So basically we can delete one row whose employee ID is this, or we can delete rows, number of rows also in collection. So all these data manipulation language, we are basically playing with the records inside the table, right? So unlike data definition language, this basically DDL, which was dealing with the structure of the table, here it deals directly with the manipulation or retrieval of the data. For large database like DML operation like update, delete, and source delete can be resource intensive optimization such as indexing. So when we are updating and deleting on large number of data now, so this might lead some problems. So in that case, indexing will help. Indexing is basically helping to find out the data and updating it very fast, or even find out the data and then deleting it very fast. So basically finding on the basis of indexing basically 0, 1, 2, that will be very helpful when we are talking or dealing with a large amount of data. Then DML statements can be rolled back if wrapped up in transactions, providing flexibility and data integrity. These things can also be rolled back. Once performed, you can retrieve it back. But in case of DDL, you cannot retrieve back. So basically in the DML, if you are deleting something, you can retrieve back. Updating something, you can still retrieve back. But in DDL, where you were truncating or where you were dropping the whole table, once done, it cannot. It means it is done for permanently. It cannot be retrieved back, right? So DML commands conform to ACID. It follows ACID properties also. So especially it is used in the, it is very much reliable for transactional things also. Next is DCL, which is data control language. So it basically control the access to data stored in the database, and it primarily deals with the authorization and permission. So it basically gives a permission to the user. It checks the authentication of the users and all. So with the grant method, where we say grant select on employee to John. So we have given in the employee table, we have granted the access to John. So basically it grants a command specific to the some privileged users or roles or various database, and this grant can be on various bases, like if you are granting access to see the table or views or structure and all, right? And revoking is totally opposite to it, like revoke select on employees and from John. So if you want to get the access back, so you will be using revoke command. So it is used to withdraw the previously granted permission from the users or roles on specific data objects. So here privileges control are select, insert, data, delete, execute, update and references. So this was about DCL, which is data control language. Next is transaction control language. So here it actually manages with transactions in a database. So a transaction is a sequence of operations performed as a single unit of work. So here TCL commands ensures that all operations within a transaction are either completed successfully or none of them are applied. So basically TCL, which we were seeing in the ACID properties also, the first property of ACID, which is atomicity. It means either all will be done or nothing will be done. So first is commit. So once this command permanently saves a change made by DML commands once they cannot be undone. So here, let's suppose if you have updated employee salary, right? If you will write the commit command, it means you are going to save the data for permanently. Next is rollback. If you feel that some happens in between, then with this rollback command, it is used to undo changes made by DML statements, and during the concurrent transaction, it reverts the database to the state it was before, right? So let's suppose you are deleting something from the sales department. So if you feel like you have deleted by mistake, then you can use that rollback command after that. So it will go back to the previous version. Next is save point. So what is save point? So if you are not using the save point, if you are then you are doing rollback, then it will lead to the starting position. And if you don't want to do that, if in between you want to have a save point, so that if you are going to do the rollback, so instead of going to the first point, it will go to the last save point. This is what save point means. At every instant of time, you are saving the data permanently. So the save point command sets a point within a transaction to which you can later roll back without affecting the entire transaction. So basically, how you do so? So deleting, let's suppose you have deleted employee whose department ID is it, right? And then you realize that it should not be the case. So before that, you have done some save point and you have given the net HR update. So if you are rolling back, so instead of only rolling back, you will save roll back to HR update and then you will commit. So basically you are rolling back to update HR update, the previous save point, and you are committing. Basically you are again saving it for permanently. Next is set transaction. So basically this is used to specify the characteristics of current transaction, such as its isolation level or read write mode. So basically you are giving the transaction, like you want to only give the read permission or write permission. So according to the transaction level also you can give it. So for let's suppose when two transactions are doing some operations, right, on the same thing, so that in none of the transactions will interfere their operations. So do one thing, give only read operation to one transaction and write operation to another, so that when our first one is doing, read write is allowed, right? If you are giving write operation or write permission to both the transaction, then that may lead to data inconsistency, which we have already learned in our previous lectures. So read is allowed, read write only one write is allowed, multiple reads are allowed. So basically through transaction we are invoking that thing of read and write permission. So that is what about transaction control language. So TCL command help ensure the database remains consistent even in case of error. So it helps to retrieve our data even in case of error or failure with the help of save points, commit, and rollback. All operations within a transaction either succeeded together or fail together. This is about the a good thing about transaction, that it will happen till the end, or it will not happen at all. It's nothing like in between it is doing something. So you can control when changes are saved to the database with the commit, or undone it with the help of rollback. Save point allow file control over transactions by creating checkpoints, like in between the points we are saving some data with the transaction, so that if you are going to roll back, so instead of going in to the very first point, you will just move to the last save point of the data. So this is all about the SQL commands which we have learned in our different languages. Like in DDL, we are using create, alter, drop, rename, insert, update, delete, merge, and truncate, where drop deletes the whole structure along with the data, and truncate only deletes all the records. Data structure remains the same. In DNL, we are using insert, update, delete, and merge. In DCL, which is control, we are granting the access or revoking the access. And last is transaction control. Here, we are basically doing rollbacks. Selecting rollbacks, we are using commit command to save the data, right? And basically, and we are also using here a save point, right? So to check to save the data at every point of time, so that we will be, when we'll be rolling back, instead of affecting the whole transaction, we'll only go to the last save point. So this is all about the SQL commands, and we have covered all those commands in detail. And those were the different types of languages with which we basically communicate with the real database. So I hope you learned, and these were very much like, very frequently asked questions in the interview. So I hope you understood each and every topic, and you will revisit the video if you have missed any topic. That was all about the whole lecture. Now let's meet in another lecture. Till then, take care, keep learning, and take care of your family as well.